So is this like a fresh start, or is this just the end, really? The beginning of the end? Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Pirates. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or hockey, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Penguins where you found this. Pirates 7, Guardians 5. 5 of the Pirates' 7 runs came in the 7th inning. For real. A couple of 2-run singles by Ji-Man Choi and Jared Triolo, both of whom have been really the Pirates' only consistently effective hitters over the past few days. Rich Hill put in 6 innings, gave up 4 runs, and David Bednar came in to close it out. And yeah, right? Like, I'm trying here. What do you say? They lost all 5 games of the homestand until this one. Would have been 0-6. That would have been only the 5th time over the past century that the Pirates would have had a homestand that would have been 0-6 or worse. And they wriggled off. They were losing this one too, 4-0, and they just happened to rally on the strength of a couple of guys who are actually hitting well, and an overturned call on a Brian Reynolds shot up the middle that probably should have been a double play. I don't know. It's just what you do here is you wonder where they even are at this point in the season. Like, it's easy to say, all right, well, they're done. Well, they are done. Of course they're done. They're not getting back into any kind of race. And from my perspective, there's absolutely no suspense in what Ben Cherington's going to at least try to do at the trade deadline, contrary to what he said to reporters at PNC Park over the weekend, that, they're still trying to make up their mind or whatever. He's just trying to keep them from quitting, meaning the veterans, the older guys, or whoever. But this is a guy who legitimately waited until 5 minutes before picking Paul Skeens to let the rest of his staff know that they were picking Paul Skeens. So he's going to play the game. But that's all it is. It's just a game. He's going to shop Hill. He's going to shop Choi. He's going to shop Carlos Santana. He might even throw out a couple of other names. It's not going to be the ones that you're worried about. He no longer has that luxury. He no longer is in a position where he can trade a David Bednar unless somebody were to just completely floor not just Cherington, but also the people above him. You're going to have to take my word on that one. He does not have the same license that he had, if only because he can't. It's year 4. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 years into this process. And this team has not progressed one iota at the major league level. We can all look at the names, you and I, and say, wow, this is exciting. This is fun. This is going to be great. It's year 4, and the only product that matters is just as lousy in the only columns that matter as it was in 2020. That's not an opinion on my part. That's not me being blind to the difference in the names and the ages. It's just a fact. And the part of this that, if I sound a little confused today, it's mostly because of this. I look at this group of young players, and I don't just think to myself, I know that they actually need some of these older players around. They're no longer in a position, just like Cherington is no longer in a position, to make moves that are based entirely on the future. What do you think of Rich Hill's emotional outbursts yesterday. If you were at the ballpark or just watching on TV or whatever, what'd you think? I had no problem with him. I had a good talk with Rich after the game. Made my stance on that very clear. And he did likewise. No apology, no nothing. Just said, listen, there's a certain way that this team has to be playing right now. There's a certain amount of effort. There's a certain amount of passion that has to go into everything. Too many guys are just happy to be here. Choi said something similar. Said he didn't like what he was sensing in the dugout before that big rally. And then when he got to first base and he made that big animated sword gesture back to the dugout, he wasn't just doing it to, follow some kind of ritual. He was letting them know that it's time to make something happen. And to their credit, they did. What happens when you let those guys go? You can say, hey, Henry Davis is going to be a great leader someday. He was the captain of his team in college, and he's got all this fire and zest. And he does. He does. He ready to do it now? Do you want him doing it now? When he's got a lot of other things on his plate? Not least of which is, hey, maybe someday they'll put him back at catcher. Paul Skeens is going to be a leader someday. Paul Skeens isn't here. I don't believe that he's close to here. Kutch isn't going anywhere, but Kutch isn't that guy. I never say that as a criticism. Not everyone has that personality. Brian Reynolds and Brian Hayes most certainly don't. And I've also been saying that for years. Only now does it seem to be coming to a broader light. So you go ahead and you trade Hill, 43-year-old lefty. Any given pitch might be his last. You trade Choi, you trade Santana. You've no longer got a first baseman. That's where you were this past winter. You know who'd be lining up at first base every day? Connor Joe. Connor Joe. You making progress there? You getting better? Are you doing right by the group that you have, the young group that you have, by letting them fly on their own? I don't know. I don't have that answer. I don't have any answers. Maybe that gives me something in common with them, right? When we come back, J1Q. This portion of Daily Shot of Pirates is brought to you by our friends at North Shore Tavern. That's directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. It's home of Steak on a Stone, an eating experience, underscoring the word experience. The steak is brought to you partially cooked on an 800-degree stone, and you do the rest. It's a ton of fun, it's a great meal, and it's a baseball atmosphere like no other in Pittsburgh. North Shore Tavern, right across Federal Street from PNC Park.
Your front door, your car, your bike, your computer, your gun. Safety is a habit. Every day you lock and secure your home and everything you want to keep safe. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different and the best way to help prevent accidents, misuse, and theft. If you have a firearm, own it, respect it, and secure it. Visit ProjectChildSafe.org. Brought to you by the National Shooting Sports Foundation and the Bureau of Justice Assistance.
Today's J1Q comes from Brandon Richards, who asks, DK, based on things you've written and spoken this week that no one should be safe, what do you think are the odds that Travis Williams and Bob Nutting do clean house this offseason? Brandon, the first thing I want to do is clarify your characterization of both the column and things that I've said on Daily Shot that no one should be safe. What I've written and said is that no one should be safe if this obscene pace continues. There's no justification whatsoever for tolerating a team performing at a .333 winning percentage over the final 5 months of a season. That makes what happened in April such an out of orbit outlier that it can't even be taken seriously in any context. And I'm not a big fan of outliers. I'm not a big fan of saying, well, if you take away this, then that. I don't like to do it. But in this case, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? When 1 month it's 20-8 and the rest of it is just the same stuff and the team doesn't get better? No one should be safe in that environment. And I'd like to think that they wouldn't be in that sense. And I'd like to think that we could count on precedent for all the legit criticism that Nutting takes in particular for his spending habits. He paid $17 million. $17 million in just flat cash to make Clint Hurdle, Neil Huntington, Kyle Stark, and Frank Coonelly go away. $17 million is the figure that I've been given from the inside, and it's highly plausible. I actually thought it would be a little bit more. $17 million to go away. Nobody likes doing that on a regular basis, whether you're naturally cheap or not. And I would imagine that Nutting's appetite for doing it a lot sooner, way sooner than he did the last one, would be negligible as well. Remember that Huntington and gang all got a dozen years. These guys are here in year 4, and they can, I'm sure, paint all kinds of pictures as to why the pandemic year or years shouldn't count against that. So if you take everything that I've just said here and you lump it up into a big ball, you're going to get a no from me. I don't believe anybody's job, at least not, of this scale of what we're talking about here, general manager, field manager. I can't fathom that the hitting coach would be back for another year. I can't fathom that Andy Haynes would be back on multiple levels, not least of which is that there's also a human survival instinct that says you got to get rid of somebody. It's not going to be me, so it's going to be him. But then, we're watching a free fall. We saw a pause yesterday, but we're watching a free fall. This team's now out on the West Coast. Tomorrow night, you know who the Angels' starting pitcher is? How do you think this is going to go? How do you think this trip is going to go? How do you think this coming month is going to go? How do you think this trade deadline is going to go? How do you think the Pirates will approach it if the kids just continue, not all of them, but the ones who have, continue to struggle? They're just going to leave them out there. They're just going to let them go. Why? Buy themselves more time. Well, everybody said they wanted to see the kids. Here are the kids. Take a look. There's the kids. You wanted them. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Pirates. And we will do another one of these tomorrow.